you could see how big he was too. I mean, and I know everybody looked big in those days, but of the two backs, like the Derek Brown and Calvin Jones, they called them the wee backs. He was more of he was more of kind of the Lawrence Phillips style bigger guy. Is I guess the way that I would describe it. And he's a high school, like Central. I assume people know this in Omaha, but like his senior year at Omaha Central was like 2,100 yards. I think he had almost 2,200 rushing yards. I assume he's still the leading all-time rusher. I don't know if it's in Class A, but in
his career
at
at 3,900 or something like that too.
Yeah,
I saw the stats the other day when he passed.
It's his numbers, especially though his senior year. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. Yeah, he had 2,196, and that was the highest, at least as of like 2017, from Omaha Central. Like Amon Green wasn't close to that. Leotis Flowers wasn't close to that. David Horn wasn't close to that. None of those guys were close to that. So he had just freaking dominant high school, and then doesn't start playing till that 91 season. And dude, it's no joke. That season 91, so that was from 92, but in 91 he plays 10 games, has 108 rushes for 900 yards and 14 touchdowns, dude.
Good Lord.
He doesn't even seem like one of the greats. And like, what would we kill for a rushing line like that right now?
Yeah.
Insane. 8.3 yards a carry, 14 freaking touchdowns. Dude, his touchdowns per year, 14, and 12. I just had no idea then how that, what that rushing attack, you just aren't going to see that from Nebraska.
Well, you just
soon after that,
because it was so common. Like, that's the thing. Like, the further we get removed from that era, and like there was a comment a couple moments ago from Matt. Let's break down the players on the offensive line. They seem pretty important. Like, you heard it at the very end of that call from Ken. Great blocking from Will Shields. And Bob Zadishka, a Hall of Famer in the NFL, dude, and then one of the better linemen of that era for Nebraska. But it was just so common. That's what it was. Nebraska always had really good running backs. Some of them were like truly elite, great Heisman caliber. Others were at the very least really, really good. And he was probably in the really, really good category. But I mean, and you can speak to this better than I can, given that you were a teenager at the time. But it probably was just like, yeah, this is what Nebraska is. Like, you took it for granted because that's what they'd always been, and that's what they would always be, essentially, for the years and years that would follow this.
And you didn't even realize it because, I mean, Josh, he was the second leading rusher on the team. Derek Brown had arguably a better statistical year than he did that year in 1991.
What did Derek Brown rush for that
Derek Brown in 90. So I gave you, Jones went 108 for 914 touchdowns. Yeah. Derek Brown went 230 for 1,313 yards and another 14 touchdowns.
Oh, wow. But Calvin definitely better yards per carry.
Yards per carry, for sure.
Much more efficient.
For sure. But it's wild.
Yeah, Bruce says totally took it for granted. Jab says, imagine if Emmett Johnson had Will Shields and Rob Zadishka blocking for him. Yeah, seriously.
Right. Well, and they didn't have Zadishka. I mean, Zadishka was a freshman that year. I don't even know that he was. I think he ended up playing.
He probably would have been on the bench in 91, yeah.
92, Brendan Stye was on the team, but he was only blocking for extra points during that season.
Yeah.
Like the 91 line, I mean, Will Shields was there, but it's not NFL stars on the 91 line, just for the record. It's like Lance Lundberg and Brian Borboom and let's see. And who else? Oh, yeah, like Bill Ziegelbein. Like, you're not talking
outside of Will Shields. You had a
Hall of Famer. You have a Hall of Famer and 4 other good players. So, not to take anything away from them, but let's not act like that was just.
Well,
like
we were talking about the 92. We're talking about the 92.
Yeah,
line.
the 92. I mean, listen, the 92 line was good too, guys. All the guys who were. It was Will Shields, but all those young guys were developing then, and they were obviously much better in the
93, 94, 95
in the mid 90s at that point.
Yeah,
right. Because that offensive line had Jim Scott, that had Zach Wiegert. He started to play in 92. You still had Lundberg there. And you still have Will Shields there, of course, who almost scored a touchdown and a fumble Ruski in that game.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, it was in that 91 season. also, you had just it's a weird era. You're right, Josh. It's a weird era.